Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Brewer's Minute. So today we have a really interesting topic that I'm really excited to talk about, and that is the idea of competitive advantage in deck building. So competitive advantage is a term that comes from the business world, and it's basically what does your business do better than anyone else, and why does it do that? So for example, let's say Google's competitive advantage is it's got the best search engine, and it has the best search engine because it's constantly innovating and pushing technology forward. So that's a simple example. So this is a big deal in the business world, and it's kind of why people will go to your company instead of going to another company for a similar product or similar service. Like, what do you do better? Maybe you have the best customer service and you have it because you have the friendliest people, but that's what you want to think about. That's how you differentiate yourself from your competition and why people actually will use your product or service and pay you money for that. Well, the interesting part is this idea kind of applies to deck building as well. So a quick reminder before we get to competitive advantage in deck building. If you enjoy Brewer's Minute and the other series here on the channel, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So for a simple example of this, let's look at Standard. Standard is sort of a 3-deck format right now. We have Mardu vehicles, we have 4-color Saheeli, and we have green-black energy / aggro, the Winding Constrictor decks. So the question is, why are these decks so good? Why are they so popular? And they each have a competitive advantage. So let's start with 4-color Saheeli. The advantage of 4-color Saheeli is it has the most game-ending combo in the format. None of the other decks in Standard have the ability to just play a card on turn 3, play another card on turn 4, and the game ends. For sure, no question about it. So that's a competitive advantage, and it has that advantage because it has Saheeli Rai and Felidar Guardian. Those are the cards that give it that competitive advantage. We actually saw a big divergence in Saheeli Rai copycat combo decks where they started off being these Jeskai control lists. That was the most popular initial build, and that's kind of where people headed at first. Like, we're going to be this control deck, we'll eventually get the combo and win. The problem is, those decks, the Jeskai copycat decks, didn't really take advantage of the deck's competitive advantage. Yes, they could combo off, but the other pieces didn't really do anything to support their competitive advantage. So the big revelation and what really pushed this deck to the forefront was realizing that to make the deck as good as it could be, the other pieces in the deck, the support pieces, needed to be focused on that competitive advantage, and that's how it is in the business world. If your goal is to have the friendliest customer service, you want to make sure you have the friendliest customer service, and if you're investing your resources into having, I don't know, the quickest turnaround time or something, it's not going to really be as beneficial because you're not going to have that competitive advantage. So once the Saheeli decks went 4-color and started playing all these things that are good to blink, like Rogue Refiners and Whirler Virtuosos, along with Planeswalkers and cards that could be copied by Saheeli Rai and also be blinked or blank by Felidar Guardian, that's when the deck really embraced its competitive advantage and was pushed to the forefront of the format. If we look at the other decks, Mardu Vehicles, its competitive advantage is it's the fastest, most consistent aggro deck in the format. And the reason for this advantage is it's got some really powerful 1-drops backed up by hard to deal with vehicles. So it's consistent and fast and resilient, and the deck embraces that competitive advantage, and you can see it throughout the entire list. You have a whole bunch of cards that are supporting the main cards in the deck. You have Toolcraft Exemplar as the 1-drop that makes the deck so aggressive and so fast, and that is supported by things like Walking Ballista and vehicles like Heart of Kirin. The other thing that makes the deck so scary is the vehicles themselves, and you can see the support for Heart of Kirin in cards like Thalia Heretic Cathar, which doesn't show up that much, but it has the 3 power needed to crew up a Heart of Kirin. So everything goes into that package. If we go down the line to black-green aggro, the competitive advantage is the deck can make really huge creatures really really quickly thanks to Winding Constrictor into +1/+1 counter synergies, and you see this throughout the deck. Almost every single card in the deck, in one way or another, is taking advantage of those synergies. You don't have Kalitas Trader of Get in the main deck in the black-green aggro list, even though it's one of the most powerful things you can have in the entire format, because it doesn't necessarily work well with the synergies. Instead, you have Walking Ballistas, you have the Rishkars, you have Tireless Trackers, Verdurous Gearhulks, Nissa's Voice of Zendikar, all things that work with and support the competitive advantage of doubling up your counters with Winding Constrictor and taking over the game with these massive threats in the early to mid game. So it's the best mid-range deck because it supports its competitive advantage of Winding Constrictor and the doubling of counters really well. So those are standard examples, but if we go back to Modern, you can kind of get even better ideas of how this influences deck building. So one of my favorite examples of this is Merfolk. In Merfolk, the competitive advantage of the deck is it's the best Lord deck. It gets the most efficient and the greatest number of efficient Lords out of any tribe in the format. Lord of Atlantis, Master of Pearl Trident, Miro Regery. So you're just overloaded with 2-mana Lords and a really above the curve 3-mana Lord. Being able to untap your lands to cast more things with Regery makes it more powerful than a really high percentage of 3-mana Lords. So you get the best Lords and the highest amount of Lords out of any tribe in Modern, and that's what the deck is built around. If you look down the list of cards in the deck, essentially every single card is built around that idea of supporting those Lords and maximizing their value, to the point where the deck plays 4 main deck Spreading Seas, not because Spreading Seas is awesome. There's a reason you don't see most blue decks playing it just to try to mana screw their opponent or to get a Tron piece, but because it supports the Lords, because most of their Lords give Island Walk, and turning a land into an island supports that competitive advantage. So it might seem counterintuitive to play a bad card, but when a somewhat bad card or underpowered card is supporting your competitive advantage and making sure that you are the best at doing what your deck wants to do, sometimes it's okay to play those cards in the deck. So Merfolk is just the perfect example of that. Every single card fits in with that plan. Yes, you have a couple random utility spells, which is fine. Even Spell Pierce, you could argue, is saving your Lords from removal spells or whatever. But the deck is really all in on that competitive advantage. So when it comes to building good decks, one of the things I like to do is think about, what is this deck's competitive advantage? What am I trying to do with this deck? What can my deck do better than any other deck in the format? Or, that's the goal at least. Maybe you literally won't be the best at what you can do, but what can I do better than most other decks in the format? And then as you're choosing the cards to go in the deck and building the deck and going through the card selection process, you want to embrace that competitive advantage and do as much as you can to support that, because that's what's going to make your deck good. If you were going to tell someone in 2 sentences, this is what my deck does better than anyone else, and this is why it does it, like, Merfolk is the best tribal aggro deck in Modern because I have the most efficient and highest number of efficient Lords, or Jeskai Sahili is the best combo deck in Standard because it's the only deck that has access to a turn 4 game ending combo. Those are the things you want to be thinking about as you're building your deck, and the more cards you can put in your deck that support that competitive advantage and help you maximize the odds of you having that competitive advantage in the highest percentage of games, the more successful your deck is going to be over the long run. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. It's kind of a different and unique way of looking at building decks. So next time you sit down to build a deck and you're going through ideas, ask yourself, what's this deck's competitive advantage? And then as you're putting the cards in the deck, make a conscious effort to support that competitive advantage in your deck building process and with your card selections. So anyway, that's been our Brewers Minute for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.